What really happened behind the scenes of the A-Team? Why did some of its most iconic stars walk away or get forced out of one of TV's biggest action hits? In this episode of Past Paradise, we're diving into the untold truth behind the cast shakeups that rocked the A-Team. From network politics and creative clashes to off-screen drama, ego battles, and personal choices, we uncover why face actor Tim Dunigan vanished after just one episode, what really drove the tension between Mr. T and George Peppard, and how behind-the-scenes power struggles eventually fractured the team dynamic. Even decades later, fresh insights from cast interviews, newly revealed production notes, and insider accounts are shedding light on the stories fans never saw. This isn't just nostalgia. This is the real story of how one of TV's most explosive shows nearly imploded from within. Buckle up, because we're about to reveal why these actors really left the A-Team. The A-Team. The first episode of this American television series that's concentrated on action and adventure was shown on NBC in the month of January in the year 1983. The series is popular in the United States. An assortment of individuals who had previously served in the Special Forces of the United States Army and are currently employed as mercenaries in the contracting sector were featured on the episode. These individuals are currently employed in the industry. Before being assigned to their current position in the military branch, these individuals had previously served in the Special Forces Armed Forces. As part of their tasks, they're entrusted with executing a number of obligations, one of which is the necessity to provide assistance to individuals who are attempting to elude the authorities that are hired by the military. The television program developed into a tremendous sensation in the realm of popular culture as the decade of the 80s went through its duration. This shift took place simultaneously. It received significant praise for its outstanding action sequences, amusing moments, and one-of-a-kind characters, such as Mr. T and his depiction of B.A. Baracus, which had the distinction of being the most noteworthy of the characters. Consequently, as a result of these characters, it earned a reputation that stretched around the globe. The real reason why Melinda Kulea left the A-Team. It was decided that Melinda Kulea would play the role of Amy Amanda Allen, a journalist who assists the squad in evading capture by the military and the pilot. She became a recurring member of the squad, making appearances in 15 episodes during the first season and the early stages of the second season. It was not her physical backup that was intended to function as the team's civilian insider. Rather, her character supplied intelligence and access to the media. In general, audiences had a positive reaction to her performance. She added a sharp and resourceful dynamism to the team, which was dominated by men, and she brought a fresh tone to the group. Kulea had high hopes that her function would expand, with the end goal of carrying a weapon and taking a more active role in the operations. Kulea started advocating for a more significant and well-rounded role. She gave the impression that she wished to be more than simply a reporter who was accompanying them. This ran counter to the interpretation that the showrunners had of the A-Team, which was that it was a guys' action club. According to reports, she was aggravated by the amount of screen time and speech that was available. There are a number of rumors and cast commentaries that state that George Peppard didn't want a female team member. Additionally, it's believed that he stated that the show should concentrate on 4 guys who are on the run and that he was opposed to enlarging Amy's involvement. The influence of Peppard, in conjunction with the silence or acquiescence of other cast members, resulted in Kulea being isolated on set. Amy's role was not expanded, but rather the writers provided her with content that was less significant. More often than not, she was either completely absent from important action scenes or had only a few lines to say. The episode The Battle of Bel Air, Season 2, Episode 10, was the one in which Amy was quietly written out of the show. Her disappearance from the narrative was not accompanied by any dramatic farewell or explanation of why she was in the cosmos. In later episodes, her departure was not addressed in any way. When Amy left the show, many viewers thought that the show had lost a distinctive voice. Additionally, retrospectives and articles frequently point to her departure as a missed opportunity for the series to develop. During interviews, Kulea never directly criticized Peppard or the producers, but she did imply that she was not treated fairly from the beginning. Why Mara Heasley never lasted on the A-Team. As a result of her presence in the episode The Beast from the Belly of a Boeing during the first season, Marla was brought back as a new recurring character in the second season. This was after she had previously only appeared in the episode once. Donna, a separate character, was the one she played in the one-time guest role that she appeared in. Tanya was initially presented to the viewers for the first time in the episode titled The Battle of Bel Air, which occurs in the 10th episode of Season 2. Additionally, Melinda Kulea was removed from the same episode that she was taken from. She was supposed to take the place of Amy, a journalist who was a co-worker of hers and became linked with the team. Nevertheless, from the beginning of the second season all the way through the beginning of the third season, Tanya made a total of 8 appearances. Nevertheless, her character was never truly integrated into the team. On numerous occasions, she was either left behind or sidelined in some fashion when she was on missions. In addition, her presence appeared to be subordinate to that of the 4 key male characters, and there was very little character development. According to the interviews that Marla herself concluded, she was made to feel uncomfortable by a couple of the male protagonists, and George Peppard told her in a simple manner, "We don't want you here." Marla's interviews were conducted by herself. Earlier reports had said that he was against the idea of having any female members on the A-Team, and this revelation echoed those earlier reports. In spite of the fact that Mr. T and Dirk Benedict were reported to have a more impartial or political manner, it was readily apparent that she was not deemed to be a viable candidate for the position. The writers did not put any effort into developing Tanya's character any further than they already had begun. Just like Amy, she was routinely left out of action situations and given very little agency. This was also the case with her. Despite the fact that they never really seemed to commit to her role, it appeared as though the filmmakers were unclear of how to make use of her. Tanya made her final appearance in the 6th episode of the 3rd season, which was also her final episode. She was fired, and there was no official leaving scene or explanation offered for her. She was also not given an explanation. After that, she vanishes without a trace. There are no references to her, there's no finish to the story, and there is no farewell. The real conflict that drove Melinda Kulea away. Her character would benefit from having more opportunities to take part in missions. Thus, she asked that she be given more of such opportunities. In order for her to develop her character, this was allowed to happen. It was her recommendation that Amy be given permission to carry a weapon, participate in missions, and grow into a full-fledged member of the team. Amy was in agreement with her suggestion. This was in addition to the fact that she would be promoted to the position of assistant in the forthcoming time period. On the other hand, this version was met with opposition from the writers and producers of the film. In the beginning, the television show was conceived as an action-adventure series with a speed that was comparable to that of a comic book, with the primary focus being placed on male characters. Due to the fact that the creative structure was being utilized would not allow for the inclusion of a powerful female character. Amy was supposed to be a supporting character rather than an active one. As the comments made by the cast and staff members suggest, George Peppard emerged as the primary cause of friction in the production. This was the case because of statements that were made. Despite the fact that Peppard was fiercely opposed to the concept of a female cast member, he was of the opinion that the number of male cast members on the show should be restricted to a maximum of 4. Although he had bad thoughts about Kulea's involvement, he refused to take part in situations in which Amy had a key role. He conveyed these negative thoughts towards Kulea. Because of this, he chose not to participate in the competition. In spite of the fact that there were other cast members who were neutral on the set, nobody ever publicly defended her. It's reported that Peppard made a suggestion to the producers that the inclusion of a female cast member would completely disrupt the chemistry that was already there within the group. The producers have taken the decision to further the amount of screen time that Kulea is given in order to avoid addressing Peppard or further developing Amy's character. This decision was made in order to further develop Amy's character. The number of lines that Amy had to say was drastically reduced, and she was relegated to a supporting position rather than being a vital component of the ensemble. In addition to this, she was not allowed to make an appearance in situations that involved a significant amount of action. Consequently, Kulea expressed feelings of being personally unwelcome and creatively limited as a consequence, which contributed to the hostile environment that existed in the workplace in which she worked. how Peppard's attitude shaped the show's female exodus. At the time the A-Team was introduced, George Peppard, a veteran Hollywood actor, was the cast member with the most experience. His reputation in the profession included aspects such as being domineering, demanding, and resistant to being easily challenged. Almost immediately, Peppard established himself as a powerful force behind the scenes, frequently having an impact on creative decisions that went beyond his own function. Peppard made it clear from the beginning that he did not approve of a female team member, stating that it violated the four-man dynamic of the show. According to reports, he stated to the producer, "This is a guy's program. This young lady does not belong." Peppard strongly fought this concept, feeling that her increasing presence would shift the focus as a result of her increased presence. Culea, on the other hand, advocated for a more meaningful involvement in episodes, including action scenes and character development. It was during script readings that he made statements that undermined Amy's part, and he insisted on not performing certain sections with her. Reportedly, he exerted pressure on the producers to remove her. The mood on the set became increasingly strained. Both in terms of her screen time and social life, Culea felt herself increasingly marginalized. The producers responded to the pressure. Only 15 episodes were all that Culea appeared in before she was written out of the show. She did not receive a send-off or a character closure, rather she simply vanished. In a manner similar to that of Culea, Heasley's character was quietly eliminated after only 8 episodes. Again, there's no explanation of the tale or a heartfelt parting. Following that, the A-Team did not have any other female characters who appeared on a regular basis for the remainder of its existence. After the 3rd season, the ensemble was firmly established as an all-male unit, which was precisely what Peppard had advocated for previously. The show continued to have a macho and action-oriented tone throughout. The female characters that appeared as guests came and went, but none of them were permitted to remain or develop into fundamental members of the team. The real reason Tim Dunigan was replaced after the pilot. A relatively new actor named Tim Dunigan was chosen to play the role of Templeton Faceman Peck in the pilot episode of the original A-Team series, which was titled Mexican Sleigh Ride. The characteristics that Dunigan possessed, which were clean-cut, pleasant, and elegant appearance, were a perfect match for Face's character profile. He was 26 years old at the time, tall and young, and he was anxious to make his debut in the world of stardom. The pilot episode was broadcast, and it received excellent ratings. Notwithstanding this, executives and producers at NBC voiced reservations about Dunigan behind the scenes. The most significant issue was that, in comparison to the other members of the ensemble, he appeared to be too youthful and inexperienced. A significant part of the A-Team's history includes all of its core members having served in the Vietnam War. The remaining members of the cast were in their 30s and 40s, while George was in the middle of his 50s. Dunigan, who was only 26 years old at the time, did not appear to be a seasoned veteran, particularly when he was standing next to older co-stars. The filmmakers had envisioned Face as having a renegade appeal, but his delivery didn't carry that out. It was determined by the producers that they required someone with more experience because the dynamic of the crew in the pilot didn't quite work. Following that, the producers made the decision to recast the part before the formal launch of the series. Later on, Dunigan said, "I probably wasn't right for the role." Dunigan handled the recasting in a professional manner. After that, he made appearances in a number of other shows. Why Tim Dunigan never became A-Team's face. During that time period, the producers were of the opinion that Tim was much too young to be considered a veteran. When filming began, Tim was 22 years old, yet he appeared to be even younger on television and in the audience for the duration of the production. When placed beside co-stars who were older, such as George and Dirk Benedict, who were more indicative of the harsh war veteran persona, there was a difficulty with the credibility of this. This was especially true when he was placed across these 3 actors. On January 23, 1983, the pilot episode was broadcast on television for the first time. Despite the fact that this was the only episode in which Dunigan appeared in the role of Face, viewers were able to see him in that capacity. In spite of the fact that Dunigan's performance was not met with bad reception, the producers made the choice to recast the character in order to improve the dynamic of the team, as well as the visual authenticity of the production. During subsequent interviews, Dunigan stated that he was too young and too tall to play the role of the character. The fact that he appeared even younger on video than he actually was was another thing that he mentioned. He also mentioned that he just didn't look like a guy who'd been through Vietnam. Dunigan respected the decision and moved on to pursue other acting opportunities that were available to him, despite the fact that he was unhappy with an earlier decision. Following that, he appeared in a variety of films and shows that were broadcast on television. On the other hand, Dunigan's one and only appearance as Face continues to be a subject of intrigue and a trivia fact for people who are fans of the A-Team. The small part that he played is frequently noted in retrospectives and documentaries that shed light on the production process that goes behind the scenes of the series. What producers saw in Dirk Benedict that Tim Dunigan lacked? In order to successfully sell the Vietnam veteran narrative of Templeton Peck, the filmmakers believed that Benedict had the appearance of someone who had traveled through combat, endured hardship, and lived a life of hiding. Despite the fact that Dunigan possessed a lot of talent, he had a boyish appearance that was not consistent with the character's military background. Through his performance as Starbuck in Battlestar Galactica, Benedict has already garnered a lot of attention, and he brought with him a fan base that was already established, as well as an experienced and self-assured screen presence. It was easier for him to integrate himself into the existing cast dynamics, particularly when he was put beside the grizzled George Peppard and the fierce Mr. T. As a result of the producer's observation that Benedict was able to maintain his own standing in comparison to these powerful characters, Dunigan was said to have had feelings of isolation. A con artist with a heart of gold, the Faceman figure is simply a master manipulator who's dressed in a nice suit. He's elegant, persuasive, and a master manipulator. Benedict exuded an air of effortless charm, a kind of Cary Grant meets grifter attitude that fit perfectly with the character's sensibilities. The polished and roguish edge that Benedict delivered so readily was something that Dunigan lacked, despite the fact that he was charming. Benedict had already established himself as a bankable television actor by the time the casting took place. In addition to having expertise working under pressure, he was also able to successfully manage a regular role on an ensemble action show. The producers were looking for someone they could rely on to play a significant role in a time-sensitive and high-budget series, and Benedict's resume provided them with the assurance they needed. Why the network fired Tim Dunigan and hired Dirk Benedict? Additionally, Templeton Faceman Peck was a con artist who had previously served as a lieutenant in the United States Army. He was also a figure in the world. He was smooth, very experienced, and had a lot of history. The idea that the team had been through war, incarceration, and covert missions together was completely demolished by Dunigan's young age. It was necessary for the audience to believe that everything had been completed simultaneously. The producers and management at NBC came to the conclusion that Dunigan was not the best candidate for the character early on, after the pilot had already been recorded. His physical appearance, his liveliness, and the dynamic that he portrayed on screen did not correspond to the more experienced and mature characters such as George and Mr. T because of this. NBC made an effort to locate an acceptable replacement for the series before it was formally released to the public. The decision to hire Dirk was made by the producers at NBC due to the fact that he was already well known for his part as Starbuck in the television series Battlestar Galactica, which played in 1978. Additionally, he had a history of being a leading man on high-profile shows, which gave NBC some additional confidence in their capacity to attract viewers. This was a significant factor in their decision to hire him. In spite of the fact that Benedict, who is 37 years old, gave off the impression of being gorgeous, he was also more stern and experienced. In his portrayal of a man who had a history of serving in the military, a criminal record, and a world-weary luck, he was able to accomplish this in a convincing manner. In addition to being a master of disguise, Faceman is also a deal-maker and a manipulator, making him the most talented member of the team. Benedict exhibited a sleek, self-assured spirit that was full of charm and mischief in equal measure. He was a man of great confidence. Why Dirk Benedict actually took the role of Face? When the year 1978 rolled around, Benedict's career was being watched in some fashion. At the beginning of the 1980s, he was looking for the perfect project that would enable him to re-establish himself on television. He was looking for the perfect opportunity. NBC was the network that was broadcasting the A-Team at the time, and it was a high-profile, action-oriented show that was carried on the network. It included a number of well-known actors, one of whom was Mr. T, who had recently gained fame for his performance in Rocky III in 1982. In a subsequent statement, Benedict expressed his belief that the A-Team was a mechanism by which he could rekindle his interest in the game. Benedict had been the producer's first choice for the character of Face when they were casting for the job in the beginning. Thus, it's ironic that they've chosen someone else. On the other hand, NBC first rejected him in favor of Tim Dunigan, who appeared to be younger and more youthful than he was. After watching the pilot, NBC came to the realization that they had made a mistake, and as a consequence, they changed their decision and went back to Benedict. The answer he gave this time was yes, and it's highly likely that he was feeling content with his response. When I first approached them, they showed no interest in having me. Then they begged me to carry it out despite my objections. After some time had passed, Benedict made the observation, "It's ironic how that works." What really happened behind the scenes of the A-Team? NBC executive Brandon Tarkatoff had the notion to develop a show that would combine action, humor, and companionship. He felt that this would be a powerful combination. A number of television shows, like The Magnificent Seven and The Dirty Dozen, had an impact on him. It was Stephen J. Cannell and Frank Lupo who were the ones who initially conceived up the concept of the A-Team. The cast includes George Peppard, who was a well-respected film actor in the 1960s, Mr. T, who became famous for his performance in Rocky III and became an icon of popular culture almost overnight, and Dirk Benedict, who's best known for his role in Battlestar Galactica. All these actors are featured in the film. In the pilot script, the actor who filled in for another actor was successful. The action figures, lunchboxes, and catchphrases that it spawned rose to prominence in popular culture in a short amount of time. The fans were completely enthralled by Mr. T's fashionable clothing, which consisted of gold chains and a mohawk. There was tension between him and the other cast members who were also involved in the production of the program, because he was the marketing face of the play. It's said that Peppard was unhappy with the fact that Mr. T was receiving more attention to play while he was receiving less attention. The fact that Mr. T is infamous for being difficult and trying to take precedence in situations led him to believe that he was the real actor and that Mr. T was a gimmick. He received this notion because Mr. T is notorious for being tough. He started a feud with the actors and crew, most notably with Dirk Benedict, who claimed that Peppard had the capacity to be quite condescending. He also created a feud with the writers. Why the cast of the A-Team went their separate ways? The various conflicts that George Peppard had with producers and co-stars were a direct result of his concerns surrounding the freedom of creative expression. There have been claims that he pressured other performers to express their disapproval of Mr. T's celebrity. The relationship between Peppard and Benedict was fraught with conflict on a consistent basis. After a period of time had passed, Benedict came to the conclusion that Peppard was cold and distant. Dwight Schultz was recognized for his dedication and skill, and it was common knowledge that he avoided getting involved in situations that could be considered controversial. By the time the fourth season rolled around, viewership had started to decline. Some of the elements that were deemed to be out of date included plot lines that were repetitive and activity that was excessive. The show was directed in a manner that did not meet the expectations of Peppard and the other members of the cast. In the year 1985, the show was dropped from the air after a total of 5 seasons. The cast did not hold a large-scale farewell. Rather, they resigned quietly with no public ceremony. In addition, the synergy that existed between them had dissipated, and there was no longer any creative magic there. Both of them were worn out. Thank you for watching Past Paradise, where Hollywood legends come home. If you enjoyed today's dive into the A-Team, then don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell. Got a star or story you want to hear next? Drop it in the comments, and it might get featured next. Until then, keep the nostalgia alive. Bye. If you've watched the video till here, that means you've enjoyed the video. Subscribe. Don't forget to turn on the notifications bell icon